Hello, and welcome to the first season of DigiFox Studios' new original podcast series, The Blood-Drawn Chronicles. Brought to you in part by Cool Comics and Games, Lee County's largest comics and gaming store, and the generous contributions of audiences like you. Thank you. The Blood-Drawn Chronicles Season 1, The Manuscripts of a Vampire, stars Nelson Ventura as Myrick, son of Meyer, Alyssa Kalugden as Karina Gallo, Paul Roberts as Lord Dragon, and Sterling Torville as Lord Tyrus Godfrey. To view the full cast, crew credits, and more, please visit www.digifoxstudios.com/tbdc. On behalf of everyone here at DigiFox Studios, we want to thank you for listening, and now our story begins. If you're reading this, I bestow a word of caution to those faint of heart. This book contains a record of events that occurred and acts which I've committed during my time in the world of man. I am Myrick, son of Meyer, and these are the manuscripts of a Vampire. Those who stalk the night strike terror into the hearts of many, for theirs is this world when the sun's light no longer envelops the earth. Creatures of the abyss, they are called. Thirst they have for the essence of life that is the blood of man. For them, this is the elixir of immortality. Preying on mankind as they do asserts their dominance over humanity. With this stature well in place, they have built a society that rivals any. For unlike man, who builds his empires on the foundation of greed, power, and lust, they've built theirs on the sanctity of blood, which draws them together. At the top of their ladder is the very person I have come here to claim. He's out there, and like myself, not born of this world. I will find him, no matter what the cost. May 5th, 1690. My journey has led me to this small town of Novi, Bosnia. Despite the appearance of a rather quaint town, I can't help but take notice to some of its quite peculiar architecture. The most notable of which are the houses. They seem as though they were carved out rather than brick-laid. The fact that the entire town appears to be but one color, that of charcoal, which is the same color of the mountains that almost entirely surround this place, only helps solidify the theory that perhaps the town was once carved out of a much smaller mountain in the center of these great masses. After centuries, it has only been reinforced and not modernized. The charcoal scheme helps match the town's demeanor. Dark, gloomy, lifeless. Never have I seen such empty streets. Never have I walked through a town square able to hear my own footsteps echo. As I continue forward, I take notice of the strong winds howling. This town is dead. and yet I hear them. Through their stone walls I hear their hearts beating, the pace quickening, strong, sharp hearts, sheathed in fear. I stop to take notice of the large structure in front of me. This house is outstandingly larger than any other, the only house to stand 2 stories, no doubt an inn. A house this size in a town as idle as this one will undoubtedly have vacancy. As I enter through the main doors, I take notice to the gentleman behind the counter. A rather unkempt fellow, fat, with hair grown profusely all over his face and head, except for the top, which did not hold a single strand. He wore what once was a white, long-sleeved shirt, with the sleeves tucked elbow-length. Over the shirt he wore an old stained brown vest, covered in what I can only guess were remnants of his morning meal, and based on the half-empty bottle in front of him, cheap wine. As I approach the counter, I can't help but take in the full awe of his odor. Not just the pungent scent of a dirty old man, for once I curse the gods for my acute sense of smell. I place my satchel on the counter and watch him eye me up and down. Though I have yet to meet another townsman, the difference between his wear and mine are too distinct. The only similarities we share are the dirt he's covered in and the mud on my boots, which to him clearly mark me, a distant wayfarer.
Hello, stranger. My name is Otto. That's Otto. I take it you're here to acquire a room? Yes, room?
Yes, I am in need of a room.
Oh, you speak the language. Forgive me, but judging solely on your attire, I took you for a tourist.
Your assumptions are correct, good sir. I am a stranger to these parts.
And from just where do you hail from, stranger?
I'm from the land's far east.
Well, I must say your Bosnian is impeccable.
What's this? A vivid fragrance drawing closer. The blood coursing through its veins is rich and potent. Pure. This is the scent of a virgin.
You rang, Father.
Ah, yes. Perfect timing, Isla. This fine gentleman here wishes to acquire a room in our humble little inn.
Oh my, he is quite the handsome devil, isn't he? Just for that, I think he deserves the best room in the house.
Isla, dear, he speaks the language.
Forgive me.
As she stands in front of me, a fragile little thing, humbly dressed in her maid's uniform, I can't help but be overtaken by the scent she exhibits. She stood no taller than the broom she held, with her posture reflecting her character heavily. A timid girl. She is the perfect prey for those who stalk the night.
Hurry on now, child. Prepare the room neatly.
Yes, right away.
I apologize for my daughter's rude behavior, Mr.
Myrick. My name is Myrick, and there is no need for apologies.
Thank you, sir. Now for the matter of how long you plan to stay.
2 days, if that.
All right, then. Let's see here. 2 days at our usual rate comes out to exactly...
Allow me to stop you right there. I am currently not in possession of your country's currency. However, I believe this rock should more than suffice for my stay.
Why, that's solid gold. Sir, for that price, you're more than welcome to stay here as long as you'd like. Hell, we'd even feed you.
I only plan on staying 2 days, but I welcome your hospitality.
Then it's settled. Dinner will be in an hour, exactly.
And I look forward to it, sir.
Your room, it is now ready, sir.
Perfect. On you go then, Mr. Myrick. Isla, Mr. Myrick will be joining us for dinner. Do make sure to give him a proper seat at our table.
Yes, father. You're in luck, Mr. Myrick. My sister Nara is the finest cook in all of Novi.
As we walk up the stairs that lead to my room, I notice a slight change in her demeanor. Her heart now beating louder, as if trying to escape the confines that is her rib cage. Is it I that gives her unease? Or perhaps what I've been told of this town is true, and she fears that night is coming.
Here we are. I hope the room meets your accommodations. I apologize now for the decor. I know pink is no color for a gentleman, but these bed sheets are made from the softest fabrics. The bed itself is the coziest in the house. The dresser is small, but it should be more than enough to store your belongings. As for the table, I don't think it'll matter much now that you'll be dining with us.
I find everything to my satisfaction, my lady.
I'm pleased to hear that. I should be on my way now. Dinner time draws closer, and there's still much work to be done.
Thank you.
My pleasure. If you require anything further, my father is always downstairs in the front room. If for some reason he's not, simply ring the bell on the counter and someone will be with you shortly. Goodbye, sir.
Goodbye, my lady. As I stand alone in the middle of the room, I notice a small breeze coming in from the closed window. A closer examination reveals to me the wood on the lower left corner of the frame has begun to rot. Furthermore, I notice the window is bolted shut, both inside and out. Curiously, I wonder, with such a splendid view of the town square, why would the innkeeper feel so compelled to bolt down the window, as if to keep one guarded safely inside? I avert my eyes from the view of the square as I ponder, and as I gaze out in thought at the mountains in the distance, I am reminded heavily of the reason behind my journey here. Somewhere out there, at the peak of one of these mountains, lies Castle Godfrey. If the stories I've heard of this castle are true, then it is imperative that I meet the lord of the castle. I haven't come this far only to fail. Lord Godfrey will answer all of my questions, one way or another.
Mr. Myrick, dinner is almost ready, sir. My father would like the presence of your company at the table. Shall we?
Of course. After you, my lady.
You are too kind. Right this way, sir.
She leads me downstairs through the staircase opposite of how we first came. This staircase leads to a hallway that, to my assumptions, leads to the dining room. As we venture forward, I catch a whiff of a familiar smell that incensed the air. Garlic. The stench grows stronger as we continue onward. My eyes begin to irritate as we reach the odor's origins. She opens the door in front of us.
Ah, Mr. Myrick, come. Let me introduce you to my family.
With my eyes now irritating, I gaze at Otto briefly. He bears the same stench and lack of proper wear as he did earlier today. I count 2 lit lamps behind him, giving off the scent of garlic. Still, I remain poised.
This is my daughter, Nara.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Myrick.
She appeared a rather worn-out girl, with clothes stained from top to bottom, particularly her apron, once white, now every color. I notice yet another lit lamp with the scent of garlic at her left side. That makes 3.
I hope the meal I've prepared is to your satisfaction.
From what I've heard of your skills in the kitchen, I'm sure it will exceed my satisfactions, my lady.
Oh my, you flatter me, sir.
Quite, Nara. Now come on, back in the kitchen you go. Now then, this strapping fellow right here is Bazim. He's the town's constable and Nara's fiancé.
He stands out from the rest, well stood, properly groomed. Though my eyes irritate me profoundly now, I still must admire the exquisite detail of his pearl-colored ruffled shirt. From his gold-tipped black boots to his dark brown vest and long coat, magnificently tailored. Finally, I stood in front of another gentleman.
I'm pleased to make your acquaintance, sir.
As am I, sir.
And of course you already know my youngest, Isla.
Yes, sir, we are well acquainted. As she bashfully stares at me, I take notice to yet another 2 lit lamps behind her. That makes a total of 5 lit lamps giving off the scent of garlic in the room. My eyes have passed from the point of bothersome to completely burning. She pulls out the chair in front of her for me to sit. I now sit directly positioned behind 2 lamps. I must maintain my composure.
Dinner is ready.
Wonderful. Tell me, Mr. Myrick, have you ever had gra?
I can't say that I have.
Well then, you're in for quite a treat. It's a simple dish, really, just a bean stew with meat, but my Nara makes it sublime. It shall be a shame, really. Bazim, when you two marry, there will be no one left in this house to cook this well.
Then you should better enjoy it while you can.
Nara begins by serving me first. I could tell by the look in her eyes. She had made this simple dish in my honor. Even as reposed as I am sitting in this chair, the heavy scent of garlic that fills this room leaves me feeling somewhat disordered. I focus all my efforts on the aroma of the bowl of gras in front of me, almost completely burying my nose in it. Based on my current behavior, one would think I took gras to be God's gift to mankind. No matter. For all my heightened senses, the one I truly lack is taste. As I take in deep breaths of this dish, I can feel it beginning to work. Slowly but surely, I am once more able to function.
Tell me, Mr. Myrick, what brings you to our little town of Novi?
I'm here on a personal matter.
Sounds somewhat important. What matter, I wonder, would bring a man all the way out here?
Bazim, the man said it's a personal matter. We should leave it at that.
My apologies. I don't mean to be rude. I'm sure a man such as yourself understands. As the constable of this town, I have an obligation to be rather protective of it.
I feel his heart beat faster, the blood furiously pumping through his veins. Slowly now it simmers. He knows something. And as my dish gets colder, I find myself with no time to go back and forth with him. I take no offense. However, you have struck my curiosity, sir.
Why, however, do you mean, Mr. Myrick?
Well, for such a restful little town like this, why must the constable be so protective?
I'd imagine it'd be for the same reason a fancily dressed drifter would find this place of any interest.
All right now, Basim. Let's not start with your stories again. I'm sure Mr. Myrick has more to do than listen to your folklore.
As a matter of fact, I don't, my lady. Please, continue, Mr. Mazet.
Well, I'm sure you've heard of the stories of the Lord of Castle Godfrey and the things that happened there. Haven't you, Mr. Myrick?
Basim, that's enough. I won't have you making a fool of yourself in front of a complete stranger.
You believe in the same things I do. All of us here do. Why else would you say he came to this town?
I don't know, but it's rude to even ask.
Your fiancé is correct, madam.
Who are you, really?
I've told you my name. Other than that, well, as you said so yourself, I'm just a fancily dressed drifter.
And I would believe that. Hell, a stranger who speaks Bosnian is not really that rare. But just now, my fiancé and I were speaking in our town's dialect, Novian. Growing up here is the only way you learn it, yet you speak it somehow. How is that? Well, answer me, sir.
His blood now racing through his veins. He lets off another aroma that fills the room, one I've become all too familiar with detecting. Fear. Perhaps this man knows more about Castle Godfrey than I realized. There's only one way to find out. What is the Lord of Castle Godfrey like?
What interest do you have with him?
First, tell me your story. You speak as if you know him well.
No, only in story. Castle Godfrey is... Well, you see, I know the castle from my investigation.
Go on.
Basim.
It's all right, Nara. You see, Mr. Myrick, a few days ago I returned home from a simple venture. Upon my return, I was struck with the news that during the 7 days I was gone, 7 children went missing. I searched frantically throughout the town and all of its bordering areas, but I found nothing.
Basim, end your story here. Need I remind you that Mr. Myrick is a great guest of this inn?
Mr. Otto, if you don't mind, I'd like to hear this. Carry on.
One of the victim's mothers had told me she had seen a dark figure take her daughter and fly off into the night. At first, I ignored her claim. The woman is known to be an elusive drunk. But as signs began to point nowhere else, I decided to take a trip to the famous castle. At first, it seemed rather vacant, and just when I was beginning to feel like all the stories we were told as children of this horrible place were just that, that's when I saw him. His face was strong, quite strong, and square in shape, with a high bridge of the thin nose and peculiarly arched nostrils. He has a rather flat forehead with hair growing scantily round the temples, but profusely elsewhere. His eyebrows are as thin as his lips, which do not help conceal his protruding, sharp white teeth. His posture shows an incredible amount of vitality. Yet, as he paces with his head held high, one can only notice his chin, broad and strong, his cheeks firm, which taper quite gently to his eyes. It's at this point, when you stare into his cold yellow eyes, that you realize you're staring at the devil himself.
My dish, now cold, whatever fragrance of grise left, is now being overtaken by the scent of garlic once more. I can feel my eyes starting to water once again. I must maintain my composure a little while longer. I have to know more about the mysteries behind Lord Godfrey. I close my eyes and drown out everything else around me. I focus all of my efforts solely on Basim's heart. I listen to what it's telling me. Its beats, its pace, its flow. They all say the same thing. I could now tell by every fiber of his being that his story was true. And unfortunately for him, that means he'll have to take me to the castle, whether he's willing to or not. I begin to take my exit. Thankfully, Basim's dramatics have left everyone unaware to the fact that my dish is left full. As I quietly head for the door, I find myself stopped by the sudden change in Basim's heartbeats. I turn and look him square in the eye.
Basim, it's all right, darling.
I ran. It was all I could do. Like a whipped dog, I ran. That's when I found...
Found what? Tell me.
I think it's best if I show you instead.